Recognizing and identifying a hazardous material is a vital first step in properly dealing with a hazardous materials incident. Without recognizing the presence of these substances, you could quickly find yourself in over your head. Your lack of recognition could cause you to be part of the problem rather than part of the solution. All responders, EMS, law enforcement, fire service, public works, or for that matter, anyone with the duty to act, needs to have the basic understanding of how to recognize these types of situations. Then, once faced with a hazardous materials incident, you'll need to be able to identify the product that you're dealing with.
There are 3 stages to hazard identification: recognition, classification, and identification. The first step, recognition, is simply to recognize that you are dealing with a hazardous material. This first step can be accomplished through careful evaluation of the scene for 6 basic clues, which would indicate the presence of a hazardous material.
Recognition clue number 1, the occupancy or location. Occupancy refers to the type of structure or facilities that you're responding to.
Places like medical facilities, auto body shops, warehouses, manufacturing plants, even a residential home can have hazardous materials. On the other hand, location refers to the general area you are in. Areas like industrial parks or highways that have a lot of commercial transportation. Mining areas, rail yards, ports, in fact, any mode of transportation. One thing about hazardous materials is that they all have to be moved, and the amount that's moved is staggering. It has been estimated that 50% of all commercial transportation vehicles are carrying hazardous materials, and that doesn't even include the fuel in their gas tanks.
Recognition clue number 2, container shapes and sizes. Various types of containers are used to store and transport hazardous materials.
The appearance of these containers can tell you a lot about the products which they hold. Containers can be found as portable, fixed, or transportation containers. In addition, they can be non-pressurized or low pressure or high pressure, which are commonly characterized by heavy steel construction and the rounded tank ends. Such construction features are necessary to evenly distribute and contain these high pressures.
Recognition clue number 3, placards and labels. United States Department of Transportation, or USDOT, requires that packages of hazardous materials be labeled, and in many cases, transporting vehicles be placarded to indicate the presence of a hazardous material.
The classification system utilized by the Department of Transportation is summarized in the current edition of the DOT Emergency Response Guidebook. Materials are first placed into general classes and then subdivided into more specific divisions. The first general class of hazardous materials are explosives. These are further subdivided into 6 divisions ranging from explosives 1.1, those that have the potential for instantaneous mass explosion, to division 1.5 and 6, those materials that are considered very insensitive. In other words, it takes a lot of energy to make these explode.
As far as the first responder at awareness level is concerned, the division of explosive involved is essentially immaterial. The Institute of Explosive Manufacturers' recommendations are fairly straightforward. If you have a fire in the proximity of the explosives, evacuate immediately, then consider your options. If you have a tractor trailer tire or engine cab fire, this fire needs to be fought more aggressively to ensure the fire does not extend into the cargo area. If this cannot be accomplished, then withdraw immediately. The DOT ERG states to withdraw a minimum of 2,000 feet away from the explosive. As an awareness level responder, you need to let the fire department know the exact situation and tell them the explosives are involved. Let them know if the fire is coming in contact with the explosives. The clearer picture you can paint for them will help them make more accurate decisions, and their decisions could very well be not to approach the fire. The fire department operates on risk versus benefit. The responder's decision is going to be based on whether the benefits to be gained are greater than the risks involved. That decision is going to be based on the information provided. What is involved? What is the extent? What are the life hazards? The more information you can provide, the better the decision-making process will be.
Hazard Classification 2, Gases. This class is further subdivided into Division 2.1, Flammable gases, such as propane, natural gas, acetylene, and hydrogen. Hydrogen is an extremely flammable gas which burns so clean and intensely that you will not see the flames. Division 2.2, non-flammable, non-poisonous gases, refers to a wide variety of materials in a gaseous or liquefied gas state, such as argon, helium, or nitrogen. But don't be lured into a false sense of safety. These containers can turn into projectiles if damaged or exposed to fire. In addition, criteria established by DOT to meet this definition also allows for other materials like anhydrous ammonia, a toxic and under certain circumstances flammable gas, to fall in this category. Anhydrous ammonia is the third most commonly manufactured material in the United States, with some 36 billion pounds being made and transported each year. Ammonia is commonly found in commercial refrigeration systems and in agriculture. Division 2.3, poisonous gases are characterized as a white placard or a label with a skull and crossbone. It includes gases such as Vicane, also known as sulfur fluoride, which is commonly used by the pest control industry as a fumigant. The most commonly seen poisonous gas is chlorine gas. Chlorine can be found throughout any community at water and sewage treatment plants in rather large quantities, such as the common 1-ton cylinder. Hazard Classification 3, Flammable Liquids. A flammable liquid is a liquid which can be easily ignited at room temperatures, such as gasoline or alcohols. In comparison, combustible liquids are materials which generally require some form of preheating to get the liquid to ignite, like diesel fuel or charcoal lighter fluid. Both classes should be handled with the same care. Your role as a first responder when dealing with any flammable material is to ensure that all ignition sources are eliminated. No smoking, no equipment which could cause sparks like a running vehicle engine, and obviously no signal flares should be used in these incidents. The fourth classification of hazardous materials is the flammable solids class. Flammable solids are subdivided into 3 divisions. 4.1 flammable solids can include wetted explosives that, when in their physical state, have their explosive properties suppressed. In addition, reactive materials or solids which are readily combustible fall into this category. Spontaneously combustible solids are materials that will spontaneously self-heat or ignite on contact with air for 5 minutes. Examples include phosphorus, aluminum alcohol compounds, and even charcoal briquettes. Division 4.3 are solids which become dangerous when wet. This can involve either the release of flammable gases such as water in contact with calcium carbide, or even reactions such as this 1/2 ounce of metallic sodium coming in contact with water. The fifth classification of hazardous material covers oxidizing substances and organic peroxides. Materials labeled as oxidizers are materials which generally release oxygen to cause or support the combustion process. Watch as this common combustible liquid comes in contact with this strong oxidizer. The reaction is called a hypergolic reaction. In this demonstration, it is a mild form of such reaction when compared to the explosive results that some of these combinations can yield. Organic peroxides are very unique oxidizers with their own specific hazards. In fact, they are further divided into 7 types, but we are not going to discuss them in that detail. Organic peroxides are explosive under certain circumstances and are highly reactive and many times heat sensitive. These materials need to be considered very hazardous. The sixth classification of hazardous materials covers toxic and infectious substances. Poisonous substances are those poisons classified as other than gas, whereas infectious substances are those materials which can cause disease in humans. It is important to note that the word poison or poisonous are synonymous with the word toxic. Hazard Classification 7, Radioactive Materials. Not all radioactive materials are required to be placarded, but all must be labeled. The highest level of radioactivity is found with the radioactive 3 placards. Radioactive materials are transported in specialized containers, which are designed to withstand significant damages and generally will not release their content, even if involved in a motor vehicle accident. However, you, as a first responder, have no way of ensuring that a release has not occurred. Any accident involving radioactive materials needs to be reported immediately to the proper authorities in accordance with your emergency response plan. Hazard Classification 8, Corrosive Substances. Corrosive materials and their associated vapors can cause visible destruction of human tissue on contact. And in some cases, these materials may also be strong oxidizers, such as the case with red fuming nitric acid. We obviously want to avoid all contact with these materials and their vapors. Hazardous Materials Classification Number 9 deals with other noxious and aesthetic irritating materials or hazardous waste. Predominantly, this classification was designed with airline transportation in mind. The desire is to prevent extreme annoyance, discomfort, or impairment of the flight crew should an onboard release occur. This category also includes ORM-D, other regulated materials, which cover many consumer commodities and small arms ammunition. You have just seen the 9 primary classes of hazardous materials and their many subdivisions. One other label of interest is the label on a pesticide container. Pesticide labels are required to display certain important information. Of particular importance is the product name, active ingredients, and the signal word. The signal word, either caution, warning, or danger, and danger can be interchanged with the word poison, indicate the relative hazard of the pesticide. Caution indicating the lowest hazard, but nevertheless a hazard, and danger or poison indicating the highest hazard. It is hoped, however, that you have recognized the hazard prior to getting close enough to read this label. So far, we have discussed that the first stage of managing the HAZMAT emergency is recognizing and identifying the product. This takes 3 steps. 1. Recognizing that you are dealing with a HAZMAT. 2. Trying to figure out the class of material. And 3. Identifying the material. Hazardous materials can be classified into 9 classifications, ranging from explosive to miscellaneous materials, with numerous subdivisions of these basic classes. We know that there are 6 clues to recognition, and we have to this point discussed the first 3. Occupancy and location, container shape and size, and placards and labels. In our next segment, we will discuss the last 3 clues to recognizing a HAZMAT incident and the basic steps you can take to more thoroughly identify the product without putting yourself in jeopardy.